What's up, geeks? You're tuned in to Fit Geek Training, where we talk about your fitness and all the things that you geek out about. Today we are continuing our MCU movie review and workout series, and we're going to be reviewing Iron Man 2. I'm pretty excited about this one. Stick around. What's up, geeks? I'm John Sargent. This is Fit Geek Training. We're continuing our MCU movie reviews and workouts. We already did the first Iron Man, we already did the Incredible Hulk, and now we're doing Iron Man 2. This movie is a ton of fun, and I'm really looking forward to reviewing it. Alright, let's get started. Alright, obviously you've got Robert Downey Jr. again as Tony Stark and Iron Man. As I said in the Iron Man review, nobody's ever been better at any role than he is at being Iron Man. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time talking about that. Obviously I've got a huge man crush on him. Gwyneth Paltrow comes back. She is Pepper Potts. I liked her in the first one. I like her even more in the second one. Their whole dynamic, their relationship, the way they banter with each other when she's pissed off at him is great. It's always really, really fun. And then you've got Don Cheadle. He's coming in to replace Terrence Howard as War Machine. And he does a great job also. I'm glad that War Machine is even in this movie. War Machine is one of my favorite characters from the comics when I was a kid. Then you've got Scarlett Johansson. She makes her debut as the Black Widow. And she is conservatively the most attractive thing walking this planet, shy of, that's right, you guessed it, 49ers starting quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. Besides that, she's the most attractive thing on the planet, and she has not answered any of my letters. You got Samuel L. Jackson. He's coming back as Nick Fury. Much bigger part in this one. Really the first time we get to see who he is and what he's all about in the Marvel movies. You got Mickey Rourke. He plays your bad guy, Ivan Vanko or Whiplash. He's got a Russian accent. He's covered in tattoos. He's got a gold grill. He does a pretty good job. I love Mickey Rourke. I like him a lot more in some other stuff, but I don't mind him in this movie. I know it's some people's beef. They don't like Mickey Rourke, but I love him. I'll watch pretty much anything he's in. Then you've got Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer. Hilarious. One of the better kind of crap weaselly bad guys in a movie that Marvel has done. I really enjoy his performance a lot. You got Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan and directing the movie again. Happy's barely in the movie, but he does a really good job in this one. Really good comedic value, and obviously he crushes in directing as he always does. The Jungle Book and Maid and Swingers and all. He's made a lot of really good stuff. So this one starts out pretty much where the last one left off. Tony has told the world that he's Iron Man, and he's been out, doing superhero stuff. Meanwhile, in Russia, Tony's father's ex-business partner is dying, and his son, Mickey Rourke, sees on TV what Tony has done, and it turns out that their fathers were business partners, and Ivan's father was exiled because he was selling secrets, and little Mickey is upset about it, so he takes the plans for the arc reactor that his father had worked on with Howard Stark, and he starts building something. You don't know what yet, but he starts building something, and obviously it's bad because the music indicates he's a bad guy. Meanwhile, you're seeing Tony Stark living his best life while that's going on. When we see Tony, he's got the Iron Man suit on, he jumps out of an airplane, obviously it's got the AC/DC soundtrack, and he lands in the middle of Stark Expo. It is the highest degree of arrogance anyone has ever seen in their entire life, yet somehow it comes off as cool and likable. It actually puts James Bond to shame when it comes to arrogance. What we find out is that Tony is suffering from palladium poisoning, which is the metal that's in his arc reactor in his chest. And he doesn't have a cure for it, and he's potentially dying. At the end of the Stark Expo, he finds out that he's been summoned and that he needs to go to a defense hearing. So he goes, he drives, him and Happy drive over there, and Gary Shandling is the senator? Gary Shandling is the senator who is out to get Tony. He wants him to turn in the Iron Man armor because he says it's a weapon that he has privatized. And Tony's not having that, and he's goofing around. They bring in Justin Hammer, and they're saying he's building his own armor, and Tony hijacks all the equipment and shows them, like, nah, this guy is kind of a boob, and he doesn't have any idea what he's doing. Nobody does. Nobody can touch me for at least 20 years. After the hearing, Tony appoints Pepper as CEO of Stark Industries. She thinks that he's just doing it because he's nuts, but in reality, he's doing it because he thinks that he's dying. In order to replace her as his assistant, he has to bring in a new one, and that's when Scarlett Johansson comes in.
Don't tell me it's not worth trying for. You can't tell me it's not worth dying for. You know it's true. Everything I do it for you.
Sorry. And Tony is infatuated with her, and she's posing as his assistant when in reality she is an agent for S.H.I.E.L.D. Tony goes on vacation to Monaco, and he tests his blood, and his palladium poisoning is getting worse, and he decides that he's just gonna jump in a Formula One car and he's gonna race. He's already got a fire suit with him that has his name printed on it, so why not? So he goes out on the suit, and Vanko is there, and he is wearing the Whiplash suit underneath his jumpsuit. He turns it on and it burns the suit off, which is pretty cool, and he's whipping it around and he's cutting cars in half with it. I really don't get why people don't like Whiplash and why they don't like Mickey Rourke. He doesn't do a lot, but he definitely doesn't ruin the movie. I think it's really cool. It looks cool. It gives Iron Man something to fight that creates a good fight. So he's attacking him on the road, and Happy drives out there in the rolls and smashes him into the barricade 10 or 15 times. And even though he's just a regular human being, it still doesn't kill him. Which is interesting. Doesn't seem affected by it at all. And then they give him the briefcase, and Tony puts on the suit, and Whiplash just watches him do it. And then they fight, and Tony wins, but they drag Whiplash off, and he's saying, I win, because he proved that Iron Man is not invincible. Vanko goes to prison, and somebody breaks him out. They fake his death, and he gets broken out of prison. Turns out it was Justin Hammer. So Hammer is employing Vanko to make him new suits that he can then sell to the army. He's not really doing anything awful, just illegal and weaselly. And he thinks that Vanko will be subservient to him. Spoiler alerts, no, not so much. Meanwhile, Tony's palladium poisoning is getting worse and worse. He cannot find a cure for it. And he decides that if it's going to be his last birthday, he is going to go out in style. So he puts on the suit, and he gets really drunk at a party, and he makes a complete ass of himself. Rhodey shows up, Don Cheadle replacing Terrence Howard, and he's there to talk some sense into Tony, but instead he goes and puts on the Mark II armor so that he can fight Tony. And they have a really entertaining fight in the house. The house goes through the ringer in these movies. It gets a little damage in the first one. It gets a lot damaged in this one. And then, in the third one, it gets completely dropped into the ocean. But in this one, they're fighting. War Machine and Iron Man are fighting. And they both do the repulsor thing at each other. And Tony's knocked out. And War Machine takes off. He just takes it. And he brings it to the military so that they can weaponize it and use that for the military. Iron Man is feeling sorry for himself in a giant donut, and Nick Fury shows up. And Nick is telling him, hey, I knew your father personally. He was one of the founding members of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he wanted better for you. Tony doesn't believe that. That's not how he knew his own father. And Nick tells him, hey, your dad didn't help me found S.H.I.E.L.D. so that you could be a complete and utter waste of space. You need to look harder, and you need to try harder, and you need to be better. And then he finds out that Natalie is actually Black Widow, and he feels very deceived. Then they lock him up in his house so that he can work, and Coulson is watching him. And you guys know I love Agent Coulson. He tells him, if you get out of line, I'll tase you and I'll watch Super Nanny while you drool into the carpet. One of the best lines in the movie. So he goes and gets a bunch of old newsreels, and he's looking at his dad's notebook, and he's trying to figure out what it is that his dad left him that can help him in this situation. In the meantime, he goes to talk to Pepper. She basically tells him, kick rocks, I'm not having it, you're the worst, get out of here. But he sees the model for the Stark Expo against the wall, and he gets an idea. He brings it back into the lab, he has Jarvis scan it, they do the 3D model thing, which is cool every time out, and it turns out that it's a molecule. He sees the atom and everything, and he breaks it down, and then he creates the new element that will replace palladium for his arc reactor. He's waiting for the new element to go through some tests, and he gets a phone call from Vanko, who he thought was dead, and he realizes Vanko's going to attack the Stark Expo. So, cut to the Stark Expo, and Hammer is demonstrating his new droids and his new piloted armor with Captain Rhodes in it, War Machine. Tony shows up as Iron Man, and he's like, hey, I think all these people are in trouble. Vanko's alive. We got to get them out of here. And a pretty cool fight ensues. All the droids fly after him. You see a little kid who's wearing an Iron Man helmet, who may or may not be Peter Parker that Iron Man saves. And then Whiplash comes in, and they beat him pretty much like that. Not a very fun boss fight, if you will. He's a cool bad guy, but they just defeated him really quick. A little bit of a lackluster ending to the boss. And then the real ending of the movie is the payoff from Nicolas Cage being in Tony's house at the end of the first Iron Man. He's got a folder in front of him that says the Avengers Initiative. And he's looking at it, and Nick Fury takes it from him, and he says, I don't think I need you to look at that. You're a little bit hot-headed, you're a little bit narcissistic, you're kind of unpredictable. We just want you to consult on the Avengers. But just the fact that they're even talking about the Avengers is enough to make me scream like a 12-year-old girl. Then you got a post-credit scene, and it's Coulson, and he's driving through the desert, and he pulls up on a giant hole in the desert, and he picks up the phone, and he calls Fury, and he says, I found it. And then the camera zooms in on what it is he found, and it's Thor's hammer. So now we know that the next movie is Thor. My ranking of Iron Man 2. This one is the 10th best Marvel movie. There's 17 that exist as of today. Black Panther will be number 18, but right now there's 17, and this is the 10th best one. So it's in the top 10. They're all fun. They're all good to watch. This one is really, really fun. I like it a lot. People tend to kind of crap on it, but I don't get why. It's really fun. It's funny. All the actors are good. The action is good. It makes sense. It leads you to the next one. Guys in armor blowing stuff up. And Tony Stark is awesome. And every time out, I'm going to see absolutely everything as long as it has Tony Stark in it. The rundown. All right, this is my bold thought for each of these movies. A thesis statement, if you will. Iron Man 2 is the Marvel movie that benefits the most from the movies that came after it. This one is really about sort of his relationship with his father and what it is compared to what he thought that it was. And after having seen Civil War and Iron Man 3 and some of these other movies where that played in, it becomes a lot more touching in this one when he realizes that his father did care for him. Also, you've got Black Widow in there. You've got mentions of Thor. You see in the background there's some things about what's going on in the Hulk movie that we already did. And it's the first time that it really, really ties into the other movies and lets you know that they're taking place in the same world at the same time. Alright, geeks, that's Iron Man 2. I love this movie. Next week, we're going to be doing Thor. So make sure you watch that one before that review comes out. Also, if you haven't already, go watch the other reviews that we did. And we're doing workouts with each one of these movies. We did the Iron Man workout, we did the Hulk workout, and we're going to do an Iron Man 2 workout. So check those out as well. And go to the Instagram at FitGeekTraining. And always check out the website, fitgeektraining.com. All right, geeks, I'll catch you next week. Game over.